Hey, the name of this video is the entire Bible / Tanach. Tanach is the Hebrew word for Bible in 7 minutes. As you can note, the video is longer than 7 minutes. There's a reason for it. Enjoy the video. The Bible is just a collection of books. You don't need to be nervous. You don't need to rely upon other people telling you what it is. It's a collection of books. You can read it on your own if you know Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. If you know any of those languages, you can read part of it on your own. Now, Greek really is only if you're interested in the Christian Bible. See, when we say the word Bible in English, we mean what Christians generally, and there's all different kinds of Christians, but in general, Christians refer to as the Old Testament and the New Testament. For Jews, the Bible is just what you might call the Old Testament. Literally, for Jews, it's Tanach. That's what it is. It's Tanach. I'll tell you what that means in a moment. For Christians, the New Testament, and for many Christians, including certain Orthodox and Catholic churches, including what we might call Apocrypha, Pseudepigrapha, other books that are not considered in the New Testament according to the majority of Christians. But it appears that all of those books were written by Jews. But obviously, just because something was written by a Jewish person doesn't mean that every Jewish person is going to venerate it. So the Christian religion, which grew out of a small Jewish religion and eventually became entirely non-Jewish, they accepted those books of the New Testament that date back approximately 1900 years, a little more, a little less, and they accepted those books as sacred along with the entire Jewish Bible, the Tanach, that was taken along with it. So right now I'm going to give you an overview of Tanach, which is, like I said, 3/4 of when you go to the bookstore and you buy a book, the Bible in English, about 3/4 of that. The King James Bible, let's say. Then again, you know, the Book of Mormon would be included for Mormons in their, biblical canon. And Apocrypha, Pseudepigrapha, like I said, among the Ethiopian church, the Slavonic churches, there are various other texts that are included, but it appears most likely that all of them were actually written by Jews. And Jews really would have a tremendous interest in a lot of these books, if not for the fact that they were adapted by people who, for a couple thousand years, in many places, at least in one location at every point, weren't getting along so well with their local Jewish community, and Jews, developed a very more than cautious, but terrified approach to the New Testament, which is rather unfortunate because it's fascinating. But for Jews, it has never been considered sacred. In fact, I would say for all Jews, it's never been considered sacred. In other words, even the early Christians, which were just a group of Jews, referring to their perception of Judaism, even they wouldn't have necessarily even had all of what we consider today the New Testament, and certainly didn't venerate any part of it as absolutely sacred, with the possible exception of a couple of books we don't have today that eventually became the sources, or at least part of the sources, for the Gospels, which are the first 4 books of the New Testament. But enough on that. This is a review of the Bible as it's accepted by all people who use the term Bible. And I'm lucky enough to be using the English word Bible because there is actually a group of people who only accept the first 5 books of the Bible, or of the Tanach, the Old Testament, the first 5 books, as actually sacred writ. But they all live in Israel, so they have to use Hebrew, and we don't have to take them into account when we talk about who considers what to be the Bible. I'm sorry if I made it slightly confusing. I didn't intend to, so let me clarify then yet again that the Bible is just a collection of books that date back between 3,500, well, actually parts of it even longer, to the mists of time, the earliest mists of recorded history, and around 1900 years ago. That is, or possibly 1800 years ago, 17 if you ask some people regarding one of the books. Sorry, I can't help but give you extra information, because I don't want to lie and say something absolutely, and then it be, someone say, hey, what about, but you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep it simple now, lest I get too far afield. Okay. All the stuff I told you right now is interesting and true, but it's only interesting if you already have a basic understanding of the Bible. And now I'm speaking to people who have heard about it, who are interested in it, but don't yet necessarily have as much of an understanding that all the things I said would be understood necessarily. So I'm thinking of starting over, but I won't, because this was good stuff. What I'll do, though, is I'll make a new video right now. I'll just continue talking, and that'll be a separate video than this one that I just did right now, which is a bit of extra. So anyone who's just watching the second video, which I guess just began a few seconds ago, if you're a scholar, be nice. Approach me in person. Don't ask a question. Just watch the one before that, all right? You gotta do this a certain way. Okay, the Bible. The Bible, generally speaking in English, refers to the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible. Christians call the Jewish Bible the Old Testament, as in contrast with the New Testament. Needless to say, Jews don't believe that there was a New Testament or New Covenant, and therefore they don't call it the Old Testament, they just call it the Bible. Or in English, Tanach, in Hebrew, Tanach. In English, the Bible. Only a quarter of the Christian Bible is... Go back a sentence. The New Testament is about a third the size of Tanakh. So even in a Christian Bible, in the King James Bible, for example, it will end up being very, very minute a part of the book. So now going to the Bible as it's agreed upon by Jews and Christians as well, and various other groups that it's impossible. How do I do this? The overcritical nature of this platform, of the internet, the insane way that people who don't know each other, who don't even share their real names or faces, don't want to speak to each other, will write at each other publicly, is absolutely disgusting. The Bible could not be more clear about how disgusting that is. I trust that anybody who is a subscriber doesn't do that on a regular basis anyway. We all fall into sin every once in a while, but I trust anyone who's a subscriber doesn't do that on a regular basis to anybody, unless it's someone who they would say it to face and believe is downright evil and they're doing it all for the right reasons, etc. Because it's horrible. But even to do this right here, even with good people, nice people, I can very easily get a comment here by someone who means well, saying, well, not entirely because you missed this exception. If I'm giving an overview of the Bible and I'm speaking to people who don't necessarily know anything about it except that they've heard the term the Bible, then obviously I can't cover every possible thing, every possible kasha, every possible exception to the simplicities of what I'm saying. For example, all that I was doing a moment ago with defining the word Bible by every different standard. Because otherwise, some klutz kasha, some oiber chacham, some motherfucking prick will show up to ask something, to show off his wisdom by pointing, you're not exactly right, you're wrong. You can't do that. You can do it, first of all, if the person who's making the videos isn't actually going to read the comments, which I hope, inshallah, eventually to get to a point where I'm not, because they have enough followers, they know who they're talking to approximately, but I do not at this point. I'm very careful to curate my followers. I don't want just random followers. I'd like the whole world to come and have a chance to be able to be sifted through, but I really just want those people who manage to have the charitableness of mind that nothing on this, and therefore I go out of my way to trigger people every which way possible, but that nothing on this do they recognize as I can't do this. I'm not interested. Because even when I trigger people, it's not to hurt their feelings. I make it exceedingly clear. It's not, for example, I made a joke. Like, let's see, would you two take it off if I said, hey, I'm going to kill the president, but follow afterwards with not in the Borat fashion, and making it very obvious and plain that this is just a joke that I'm doing for the YouTube censors, whatever. Right? If someone can't tolerate it, or they can't tolerate a word or an idea or whatever else, then screw them. I don't want them following. I want people of charitable mind who have something to add, or not. You don't have to necessarily have something to add. I would love to get comments that are positive and helpful and build the community. That'd be magnificent. You don't have to do that. But just that aren't, do you have any idea how many comments come through that I don't let through that are just like, if I talk about anything Jewish, that doesn't mention Israel whatsoever, I'll have tons of comments by people saying, well, what about apartheid in Israel and the Palestinians, or all different kinds of other garbage like that. Because, anyways, so I guess biblically that's the best that I can... I'm going to end this by saying this. I mentioned in the video before this one, I believe, right before probably, that the monotheistic religions, that Judaism, let's say in particular, the Bible in particular, the 5 books of Moses in particular, the Pentateuch, Bereshis, Shmois, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Dvarim, Exodus, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Those first 5 books, they contain a lot of really interesting information from the law of Moses. And there's stuff in there that isn't just for the sake of a perfected world or for the sake of society at any given moment, but also addresses the individual. But let's look at the societal aspect of it. The kind of society envisioned in the 5 books of Moses is extraordinarily beautiful. I said before, Lo yistelech rachil ba'amecha. This is from the Bible. Lo telech rachil ba'amecha. You should not have peddlers in your midst. In other words, stay local. Deal with the things that are in front of you, the people you can address. When you're talking about people in particular, don't quote somebody, don't talk about somebody. True or false? Don't gossip. Really, that's the law. Don't gossip about people. Look, telech rachil ba'amecha. There should not be peddlers in your midst. Anything that has to be dealt with ought to be dealt with face to face when it comes to human beings. Today we've taken it so far that we have this it's an unbelievably horrible thing that is definitely not in accordance, not the internet in total, which is beautiful, but the way that so many of us treat it so much of the time in how we interact with people is unbelievable. So I'm sorry, this is why you didn't get the overview of the Bible right now. I wanted to give it to you, but how can I? You know, Moses, I'm not Moses. My name is Moses, actually, but I'm not claiming any, because that's what I would get. That's what I already got comments like that. Who the hell do you think you are? You're just another, I have 200 followers. What's your problem? You know? Moses, in the Bible, came down from Sinai after spending 40 days and 40 nights without eating and drinking in communion with God. He came down with the 2 tablets made out of sapphire, etched by the finger of God. Probably not a finger that looks like this, it's an expression. But the point is, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. It happened. Etched in the finger of God. Sapphire. Tablets. He came down to the mountain and discovered that people were not up for it. Society was too much of a mess. No good. And he smashed them. Later on, he came back down with 2 tablets that he himself wrote. That he himself was a copy of the first 2. He etched it himself. He smashed the word of God. I myself am not sharing the pure word of God written on sapphire, the same color as the sky. If God's words could not overtake a congregation that did not have its act together, I have no chance. I'm a human with every fault, foible, and limitation and more that everyone else has. I'm basar v'dam, flesh and blood. There is a commandment in the Bible to judge favorably all the people in your covenant, all the people part of the community. Now, what exactly does it mean? Strictly Jewishly, religiously, it means if the man has a circumcision done by a whatever, you know. But the point is, anybody who accepts these laws, who accepts for themselves these moralities, these statutes. We don't even have anything like that today. Our statutes and laws are created by advertisers and lawyers. The two people who literally hang a sign in front of their houses saying, I will say whatever you pay me to say, and I will say it convincingly with pathos, invoking ethos. I will do whatever it takes, proudly in the yellow pages advertised that way. And they are the ones who set the moralities of our time. For real. Not a joke. For real. We don't have anything. Anyway, but within this world, I'm doing my very little best that I can. I would like some feedback on this. If I get some feedback and people who actually want to hear an overview of the entire Bible in 7 minutes, where I'm reading the first verse and telling you the essence of the entire book, it can be done quickly, and you might have to review it a couple of times to get it down. But once you do have it down, you have the keys to the Bible. The Bible. You will have the keys to the Bible. You'll know what it is. You'll be able to, when you open up randomly, you'll know approximately what you're reading. You will have the very basic, obviously there's many layers beyond that before you could really open up anywhere and understand 100% what you're reading, but you will know what the Bible is. You will have that first stage completely down. So let me see that I have some people who are interested in being good students. If you guys are out there and you're interested in this, let me know here in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll be happy to do that, inshallah.